Hello, David. How are you?
I'm fine, good.
I'm always happy to see you. You know why? Because I know we share so much passion, and it's not only about RegTech and banking. So very great. But for this occasion, we're very pleased to have you in the interview. And well, you did a great contribution to the RegTechBlackbook, giving us insights from within the bank, from within the incumbent. And yeah, I would like to dive a little bit deeper in some of the statements, if I may, that you put in the article. And I think that the first one that struck me was about let's get real. And you talked about a bus, and you talked about something bigger than reality. So what did you mean by that, David?
Well, for me, what I mean by that is that obviously I've been following on innovation for quite some years, even before I was in this position, being in charge of innovation. And so for me, I was rather surprised when I saw some real numbers about what was going on already in the market, beyond a little bit what is the so-called innovation theater. I was kind of disappointed to see the real numbers sometimes in terms of how many banks really do collaborate with fintechs next to the ones that are claiming that they are doing that. And even for the ones that are already active in the scene, how difficult it is to generate really impact and to scale these partnerships beyond the proof of concept. I think it's still a massive challenge. I think the good thing is we are beyond the phase of seeing the benefit from the two sides of the coin to collaborate, because in the beginning it was rather, shall we really collaborate, or is this to be considered as competition? I think we are behind that one, but still to make it work, it is a huge challenge. It takes two to tango, and there are probably as many problems and issues on the side of the fintech as there are on the side of the corporate and incumbent world.
And could you give some examples why you see there is a challenge for this kind of collaboration to happen? What do you see as real life examples?
Well, I think the most important issue that I see companies struggling with is what they call sometimes also the post-marriage syndrome.
Okay.
I think falling in love with a fintech is easy, and a fintech falling in love with a big bank probably
more easy.
But then it starts with a POC. Then typically things are still going well, and there's very much focus on it from both sides of the coin. But then it ends up in a commercial contract, assuming that the POC delivers according to expectations.
Yeah.
And then it needs to keep getting attention beyond the proof of concept. And then it comes into conflict, I think, with other priorities in the big bank. And that's when it starts to really get hard, and when you really see how serious all parties are about the partnership.
So it feels a bit like in an equation around scaling, but then scaling within the bank itself.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and especially talking also from my context, making something land and expand in one business unit is one thing, but then obviously if you're part of a bigger group, international group, you also get challenges like, is this file having the potential to become a standard for the group, which is a good question, by the way. But then when you put that next to the size of a small startup, you might not even want to go on with it, because it's a recipe to kill a startup if you too fast expose them to massive tanker. So it's a matter of understanding how this is different, I think, from traditional business decisions in partnering with IT companies, software providers, because obviously if you choose to do something with a startup, you should ask yourself other questions than if you consider doing something with big incumbent players, style Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, and whatever. These are different questions to be answered. And I think we are struggling with that yet.
Yeah, that's something I hear more often, to be honest. What strikes me in this thinking is also the idea of the why. Why are you then picking a startup, RegTech, InsurTech, these kind of young companies? What's the driver behind this? Because I mean, there's no must if you think about it. I mean, you don't have to. So why are you attracted to them?
Well, I think what I've also written in the article, I think this is really an unexplored space in many incumbents. I don't think this is only the case in a company like ING. And the reasons are a bit historical. I think, well, I made a joke about it, but if innovation is there to serve the unserved, I think the real unserved so far in this space might be the employees working in these departments, because typically they always came last when it was that time of the year when budgets were granted for the following budget cycle. We were always focusing very much on customer-facing innovation. And then, when the colleagues from risk and compliance raised their hands, the money was gone. There was no money left on the table, and they were kindly asked to come back next year. And ask their questions again, with that basic outcome that they are still working with very old-fashioned tools. And there are now plenty of young companies on the market, typically founded by people who left big incumbent banks full of frustration because they were working with these shitty tools, and they thought, this could be done better.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a match made in heaven, because you kind of overcome already one of the challenges also in partnering up with fintechs, that at least the CEOs or the CTOs are, typically people having experience in the industry. And by the way, I think yourself are a good example of that, Koen. You come from the corporate world, so you know what we are talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of that RegTech, making it happen, actually, because I feel a lot of the times that some of the RegTechs find it more difficult to speak the language of the bank, and therefore I think that connection is also not so easy to make.
Yeah. And for me, I think we easily smell if we are having conversations with RegTechs, and we obviously have many of them. You easily feel which people come straight from the industry, because they do know our pains, and they do know them very well. Because they suffered from that. So it's very easy.
I thought that was actually one of the funny parts within the within your article, when you mentioned the RegTech people as being some of them are at least the frustrated enthusiast. And I think that's now you define that better, what that actually means for you, and then that really makes sense. And then to me, it makes sense. Something else that also kind of drew my attention when I was reading the article a few times is, I think a statement that I kind of agree with very much is that whole discussion about data and data being the new oil, and I think that is right. But then knowing you for a long while, you always come with that very same portion of common sense. Mm-hmm. And I think that what you made it sound like is that it's not yet it is somehow the gold, but it's not yet the gold. So would you mind elaborating a little bit more what you meant with this statement, or with this bold statement in your article?
Yes, happy to do so. I think obviously I do share the common point of view that data has the potential to become the new oil. But in order to extract the value from having the oil, you need to be able to exploit your data. And I think there, as an industry, we still have some struggles. I think, there's struggle because the data are typically scattered over multiple applications. There are issues with data quality. we need to put into place processes to share data, because if you want to work with RegTech, the RegTech can only demonstrate its value if it has access to the data.
The data, yeah.
They can start working on it. And that's many, many challenges. I could go on for a while. Adopting to cloud strategies. That's also part of the challenges, because that's this whole thing about what they call the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
And that all makes sense, but I do think, we still need to digest really a couple of challenges before we can fully leverage on the opportunities unlocked by this fourth industrial revolution. And so then I typically make the comparison with Venezuela, which is a country being known as having the second largest oil reserves on the world, but apparently is not enough to be a rich country. Rather, on the contrary, I think they're ranked number 160 something in the overall GDP ranking, and probably what happened last month didn't help to go into the right directions in that country. So it's a massive opportunity on the one hand, but I do think we still have a long way to go as an industry to fully benefit from, indeed, the potential of all these data at the benefit of the customer, because at the end of the day, it's only relevant to have data if it can be beneficial to better service your customers.
No, I agree. Do I also read between the lines that it is also a matter of taking the lead and taking that next step as the bank to form that future for you? And I think, well, seeing it from the outside and knowing you and seeing some of the products that came out of your incubation program, I think this is something that you do very well. Is that?
Oh, yes, because I think there's only one way to shape the future, and it's start building it yourself.
Absolutely.
I think, and so that's what we try to do, indeed. So you're referring to our accelerator program, FinTech Village, which indeed, especially this year, has a nice representation of RegTech files in it.
Yeah.
So we are strong believers, and I think next to that, ING is also investing in a dedicated innovation lab on RegTech from London. And by the way, we're heavily collaborating with our colleagues in London to constantly spot and monitor promising RegTechs in the market. So it's not a coincidence even that a few of our cohort are coming straight from the UK. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. What I also probably was trying to say is that it's not only about taking the lead with the RegTechs, but it's also as a bank, as an institution that you take the lead to make it happen to the future. And I think that's maybe when you compare that to Venezuela, it's maybe wrong to say they don't take that opportunity. There's obviously many reasons, political reasons and reasons we won't discuss here, but I think it's that idea that you make that change, you make that connection.
Yeah. And even if it's a tough journey, Koen, at least we try, and we do more than trying. Let's face reality. ING as a whole has, as we speak, over 150 partnerships with fintechs. Not all of them being RegTechs, obviously, but that's a massive number. So I think that proves that we are serious about this. And even if you're hitting walls sometimes, you're kicking out the impediments as you meet them. And we try to get better every day on trying to work with fintechs, having better processes on all the issues I just briefly described. So but it's a learning journey, and even maybe more than learning, the most difficult part is not to learn, is probably to unlearn, and so to stop doing things like you always did them for decades because you were part of a big bank. That's probably even a bigger challenge than unlearning. Could go on for a couple of hours on that one as well. Yeah,
it's an interesting thought, actually. I never thought it that way. Now, what I feel a lot each time is passion. I think you need to have passion. So my question to you is, like, what is your personal driver? What keeps you going?
Hope, a lot of things, but I'm glad and that's typically what people say when they talk to me, that they feel indeed the passion and the energy, and next to that, typically the authenticity and the down-to-earth approach. That's the kind of 2-3 things people typically associate me with. I think move the needle. A big corporate is a tanker, and so how to turn that tanker into a speedboat is a very interesting challenge. And in fact, I was a believer in innovation, but rather as something I did after business hours. So at the moment, I got the opportunity to, well, I would say, turn my hobby into my job. I didn't need to think that long time, because finally I'm in a position to move the needle and make it happen myself. And then what is giving me energy as well, in particularly in this context, since a long time, I love to work with young people and making them grow, making them shine. Obviously, when you're active in the world of startups as a whole, RegTech, well, not particularly, but startups as a whole, you get exposed constantly to young people who all want to change the world, want to build their company from scratch. And I would say that's what I get my energy from typically, to see all these crazy people trying to do crazy things.
Keeps us young, right?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Hey, maybe one last question before we come to the end of this interesting interview. If people want to contact you, what would be the reason to contact you, or where can you help them with?
That's a good question. Well, to be honest, again, and this is a dangerous one, I guess, but I'm always happy to help anybody if I think I can, even if it's to help a young entrepreneur, which is maybe not relevant for ING, but if I can share some of my experience and make these people go in the right direction, I'm always happy to do that. I'm a heavy commuter, so I spend on average 3 hours per day in a car, so I have plenty of time to do that. If it's also supposed to be relevant for ING, obviously, it's typically going the other way around. We have a very solid view on what are the problems we want to be solved. Also, where the solutions could probably come from the RegTech scene. And so we are very well organized, I think, as an organization to proactively scout ourselves the right and relevant companies. Also on the level of the group in ING, we have a fully equipped scouting team who knows the market very well. But sometimes, you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes you're surprised by the solutions you didn't even have a clue they were existing. And so it goes with both ways. So it can be starting from our existing list of problems, opportunities, but it can also be that somebody is surprising us by something we didn't really think about. And then, next to that, outside the context of ING, again, with this pay forward mindset, always happy to help anybody if people think I have something to contribute with. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's the way I know you. So I can only say for those that are now wondering and thinking, shall I do it? I would say just try it out. It's has been always a very nice experience for myself too. So thank you very much, David, again for this interview, for your collaboration in the book. And I hope to read, hear, whatever more from you, and I'm sure we will. So I wish you all the best, and talk to you soon.
Want to thank you, Koen. It was for me a nice experience. So I'm very much looking forward to the feedback from the people who will read the book. So wish you all the best with the launch.
Excellent. So on that happy note, I would just like to tell to the listeners that, of course, they can leave their comments in this YouTube video. On the other hand, do not hesitate to go and have a look on our website. That will come on the page very soon, or don't hesitate to look at the other interviews that have been taken during our experience with the book. So thank you very much, everyone.